We are live.
Hello.
No, Wednesday night here in
Oh, Wednesday
Jerusalem.
night. Beautiful.
Let's just check the Instagram real quick. Thank you everybody for coming. If you're coming a little bit late, it's okay. Okay.
I love being asked questions. I realized that this morning when I woke up. I'm like, I wish I could just get on the computer every morning and have people just ask me questions.
I love that. Okay, so not seeing the Instagram. I'm giving it a second. Let some people join. Welcome everybody. We're gonna have an awesome conversation with a previously two-time guest. So it's your third time. It's a chazaka, as we say in Hebrew. When something happens three times, it's set.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna switch to this format. This format. One sec. All right. Welcome to another awesome conversation. I don't like to call them interviews. We call them conversations of the Jewish original community. Unfortunately, the other half of this show couldn't make it today, but it's okay. He sent in some questions. That's Isaac Simon, the tallest Jew, and we'll get to those at some point in the conversation. So today we have on, Taylor Amrani. Taylor is a life coach, a mentor, one of my inspirations since before this page was even a concept, and well after. She's a friend, and we're excited to have you back on. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me again. Third time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll start. We'll let you introduce yourself a little bit. Maybe some of our audience doesn't know you. This is the first time they're seeing you. So the question that I've been asking in this new format is, who is Taylor Amrani? What's the elevator pitch?
Who is Taylor Amrani? So I would say that I am. We'll start on a spiritual level. I'm a soul on this earth, just doing life school with all of you and doing my best to learn and grow and evolve alongside others and share what I know and learn from as many people as I can and as many experiences as I can. And I actually started my career as a life coach and evolved into teaching more spiritual concepts. Today, I actually help people show up authentically online and, use social media as a platform to spread light in this world, because I do believe that it is a powerful platform and resource to spread light in this world. And, clients like Mayor in the past actually inspired me to see that is my true passion, to actually help people take their ideas and bring them to life using social media as a platform. So that's what I do today. But of course, we'll probably talk about a bunch of different stuff, and I'm excited to speak with you all.
Yeah. Thank you. And you can find Taylor at Life by Taylor on Instagram, any other platform, TikTok.
On TikTok, I'm Taylor Amrani. Someone stole Life by Taylor when I changed it for like a day. And I was like, no. So Taylor Amrani on TikTok, Life by Taylor on Instagram.
Okay. Amazing. So you've crossed 10,000 followers on Instagram and TikTok also. It's growing, I assume.
TikTok, we're above 100K. On TikTok and Instagram, above 10K. But I'm really not a numbers girl, so I guess it's cool. It's nice. It's validating. But I think that the impact is felt. Some people feel it when they have a lot of followers. Some people have it when they have a little bit of followers. So I've always focused on that, and I'm happy to have a community that loves me. That matters more.
So that's a good transition. Did you envision that sort of growth, especially on TikTok, or what? It, like you said, it's never really been about the numbers. You just kind of.
It obviously, on some level, is about the numbers. You want to grow your accounts. You want to have some sort of recognition for putting in so much work into content. And obviously, there is a benefit of having a bigger following. However, I've learned that to get to these numbers, you have to kind of put the numbers aside and just do what you love and consistently create. You know this too. I say this to my clients, whether you go viral tomorrow or not, you will still have to wake up tomorrow and continue making content. So focus on that and let the algorithm gods do whatever they're meant to do, you know? So I don't really focus on the numbers much, but of course it's really nice and validating. I've always wanted to grow my accounts, but never put the focus on that solely because it's just really disempowering in the process.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we definitely get that a lot when we spent a lot of time on a piece of content that doesn't go anywhere, and then the ones that I spend less time on do go somewhere. So
it's always the ones you least expect, the ones you put the least amount of effort into. I mean, I went viral first on Facebook when I was making like these huge productions, these videos with my friend, and we were editing them with these high-tech cameras and everything. And then one day in the car, I just took my phone and I like recorded a rant about what's happening in Israel and Gaza, and that went so viral. I was like, what? After all of that work, this is the video that actually goes viral. So that taught me a very big lesson, to just create and do what I enjoy creating and trust that things will work. It's not really in my hands.
And so, this is kind of broad and vague, but I'll let you run with it. What is the dream or dreams for Taylor, for Life by Taylor?
Wow. I think as I get older, my dream really evolves, and it's really interesting to watch. I think when I was a little bit younger, I was like I still am ambitious, but I think I was delusional in a good way. I was like, I want to meet Oprah and I want to be the next Oprah and all these things. And I have a feeling actually relaxing is going to get me there. But I see life today a little bit differently. My dream is actually to have a really successful family life and to be able to live a slow-paced lifestyle and doing what I love in life. That's my biggest dream. I want to be of service to the world. I want to do good in this world. I want to do things that energize me and light me up. But at the same time, I really want to be able to enjoy my life, not do work as means to an end. So that's my dream, actually, is to live a slow-paced life, doing what I love and being successful at it.
Okay. And obviously, you said spiritual mentor. Is that the word you used? Or
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So spirituality and religion are often conflated. Usually it's, sometimes, especially in Judaism, sometimes people feel like, oh, if I'm not observant, if I'm not keeping all the different things, then I can't really pray. I can't participate. So how can we sort of, because you open by saying that you're first a soul on this world. So it's a very Jewish idea. We're made in God's image, and we're souls in physical bodies. So how can we sort of bring that idea down to a more practical way to emphasize the fact that spirituality and religion are often connected, and often they take us a longer way, but they're not necessarily attached.
Exactly. So I'm not a religious Jew. I am a Jewish soul for sure. And I really am passionate about making sure that people understand that God is accessible to them on a personal level. God, your relationship with God is probably one of the most personal, deep, intimate relationships you will have in your life. And you don't need anyone or anything as a medium to have a relationship with God. I think it makes me sad, actually, that people, they reject spirituality because they perhaps reject or have judgment or feelings towards religion. I obviously really respect religious people and religion, and I think that it's a beautiful, beautiful way to connect with God. But yeah, it doesn't speak to everyone, and it doesn't, not every single person feels like that is their way of practicing their Judaism or getting close to God. So for me, it's important for people to understand that spirituality is really about having this deep, intimate connection with your creator, having faith over fear, believing in something bigger than yourself, knowing that you are not alone in this world, that you are not made alone, that your dreams were not placed in you randomly. There's so many parts to it that I try to make as accessible and practical to people who may or may not feel inclined to go down the religious route. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that either, but I do think it's important to open the doors and remind people, because God is obviously the creator of the ones that are religious and not religious. And I want people to know that and to feel that. And for me, the way it manifests in my life, I pray to God, I speak to God, I feel God's presence in my life. I really don't feel like I walk alone in this world. And I think that it has helped me immensely. And I cannot see life without that relationship. I think that there's so many problems that cannot be solved on a physical level. I think that the only solution to addiction, for example, is God. I think the only solution to lack of self-love is God. I think that all the affirmations and all the manifestation, all these things, they're great, cool tools that we have and all these different modern ways and takes that people have on spirituality. But in my opinion, I've tried everything. At the end of the day, I have to kind of surrender and come back to my creator and ask for help and guidance. And that has always been the only thing that really does end up helping me. So here I am, not religious. And it's really important for me that people know that God is still accessible to people who don't practice religion. It's okay. He's still your God.
Yeah, I thought of I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you. It's a famous quote from the Kotzker Rebbe, someone asked him once, "Where is God?" And he said, "God is wherever you let him in."
Oh, I love that.
So usually like the metaphor also goes on to more saying like God is sort of it's on your heart, and every time the heart pumps, it opens up and it closes. So literally your heart is opening up and closing constantly. So it's okay sometimes you feel like there's that constriction, because that's literally your life force. But it's in that moment that it opens up that then it can, and God is just kind of like laying down, and then and it just kind of comes in, and just kind of seeps in, and there is a push and pull. That's also a concept of
sure.
Like, we get really deep into the physical, and we're working, and we're in the tachlis, as we say in Hebrew, and then there's moments where you're just like, I just want to close my eyes and I want to pray, and that's when you're going in, actually, and then you're retreating into the physical. So
yeah,
these are all.
I love that, because I like to say to people, a lot of people have an idea of God, they have an understanding of God, they have an outside relationship to God, but God really is the home of God is placed in your heart. And I really believe that is the portal to God is through my heart. And my teachings are all around, when I was doing more spiritual teachings, is, am I living with an open heart or a closed heart when it comes to the relationships in my life, when it comes to my dreams, when it comes to the way I approach things? Am I opening my heart into this experience, or am I closing my heart in this experience? And you can really, really feel that a closed heart is usually rooted in fear. An open heart requires so much faith. And it's really hard to open your heart if you don't feel like there's someone who will catch you when you're disappointed, when it hurts, when it doesn't go well, when you fail. So how could you do that without God? I don't know how. Personally, thank God, I feel like that is the only way. And I say, okay, I'm opening my heart into this experience. God, show me how good this can get. Show me what I need to learn. Show me what needs to happen here. And in every outcome, I know that's what I needed, whether it was positive or negative. That's what allows me to live life with an open heart instead of closing in fear, which is obviously the easier thing to do, in my opinion. It's not the best way to live, but it's the easier thing to do.
Yeah, saying thank you even when it's not good or perfect. Saying thank God, like that's really, really hard. And
it's the only way.
There's I thought of this like a year and a half ago. Like in Hebrew, we have the Hebrew language has the GATRA, the numerical values for letters, and when you add the numerical value for emunah is 102. And so I just sat and I thought, like, what could that possibly mean? And in that moment, it came to me of like, when you feel like you're at 100 and you add the 2, which is bet, which is bait, you build a home for God or for yourself or your family. That's where an emunah will like be complete, when it's at right when you feel like you're at you can't go anymore, you're at 100. Create a home, create the bet, add the 2. And you'll feel like you're part of the infinite, and there's nothing that can stop you.
Cool, I like it.
It's hard, yeah. So obviously we're having this conversation 6 months into a war in Israel, and that's taking a big toll emotionally, spiritually, physically for so many people. I'm sure that many yourself, and then a lot of people watching this as well. And one of the things that I know you spoke about, even the war 2 years ago, of this media frenzy of, because it's constant and it doesn't end. And in the beginning of the war, it was so much awful content that everyone was seeing. So I was wondering if you could maybe give some tips for our audience on how to better consume some of this some misinformation where you can stay in the loop, you can find out what's happening in Israel without necessarily it making you
Exactly.
depressed or throwing you into a lull.
If only I had the real answer for this, but I will say, first of all, just to give some context, I started my career in Hezbollah. I did a lot of videos on Israeli advocacy. That's how Mayor learned about me. I served in the Israeli army. I volunteered. I was an infantry instructor. I served in Operation Protective Edge on the border of Gaza. I have a very close relationship to this conflict. I can feel it in my bones. And, even on the other side of the world in Hawaii, when they do fireworks here, I can feel my body tense because I have the memory of rockets falling around me, or whether I was in Tel Aviv or I was on the border of Gaza. And, I think that it's been a really challenging time, obviously, for people in Israel, outside of Israel. I won't say people, I'll say Jewish people in Israel, outside of Israel. I don't think that we've ever felt how close Israel is to our bones and our heart, and how much we are actually, a piece of us is always there no matter how far we are. I literally could not be further from Israel if I tried geographically. And I felt like I was completely there for 2 months. And I actually never read the news. I don't watch the news for my own personal reasons. I just don't believe that it contributes to my consciousness. I think it really does lower my consciousness, puts me in a fearful state. It is addicting in that way as well. At the beginning of the war, I was watching the news a lot, and I felt it really sucked the power out of me, really disempowered me. Truly, I felt that it slowly started to take away my own ability to perceive my power in the situation. So I don't think that my advice is going to be how you can find information, because I really do think that you will hear what you need to hear. Now, I don't watch any news, and things get to me eventually. I hear the things that are happening. I think what's more important is that we stay clear on the fact that we need people to feel empowered in this. Okay. We actually need people to protect their energy and their power, and not let things like the news convince them that they are powerless. And that includes social media. When I was scrolling on TikTok at the beginning of this war, my algorithm started only feeding me pro-Palestine things, because I would fall on 1 or 2 videos that I would watch fully, and that's it. Then they decided, oh, this is what she wants to see. And I slowly started to feel like a very shriveled up version of myself that felt super disempowered, that had no ability to change the situation, very much a victim, very much helpless and hopeless. And it put me into a very depressed state. And I realized, okay, well, if I want to make anything happen, if I want to do anything, I have to take care of myself. I have to take care of myself. Like no one is benefiting from me being depressed in this situation. I'm not saying that I have to go fight people and I don't have to even say anything, but we need people, especially Jewish people, to feel empowered and strong and to protect themselves. Okay. We're not helping by letting these forces kind of water us down and ruin our ability to shine bright and shine, our light in the world. So that's my tip, actually, is to do what you need to do to protect yourself. Okay. Information, you will get the information. I promise you. Okay. It's an addiction that we think, oh, I need to check this. I need to know what's happening. You actually don't. We need you to be good. We need as many Jewish people in the world to be strong, to be good, to be in their purpose, to serve their communities, to be able to really show up in the world with their light, not to know information that's going here and just making them feel weaker. I'd rather you focus on your heart, not on your mind. So information will get to you. I'd much rather people focus on protecting themselves. And I think that that's what I learned at a certain point. I don't need to watch the news. The world does not benefit from me watching the news. The world needs me in my power, in my light, strong, doing what I came here to do. So that's what I would say to people. Focus on that.
100%. Amen. From your words to their ears, God's ears. I think also, there's an element that people don't realize, especially in the beginning. It's a psychological warfare. They wanted us to see that stuff. They wanted us to be watching and to feel. I mean, I was here. I was in Yerushalayim. I live in Yerushalayim, and I've never really felt so unsafe until those days. I kept on like double checking the doors, making sure everything's locked. Being scared that at any moment something else could happen. And then so if you're feeling that in your own home, there has to be a moment of like pause and and to step back.
Do you believe me that Jewish people in Hawaii, we were talking about how we're locking our doors because we're afraid that the terrorist is going to walk into our house on the other side of the world? It makes no rational sense, but it just shows how powerful that is, how powerful that psychological terrorism is, where we're looking around us to see that someone's not going to come try to harm us in a place where really it makes no sense. It just shows how much they achieved that goal on some level. And, we have to choose to not let them do that to us. Okay. It's really important. So if watching the news puts you in a mental state, I don't want you to watch the news.
Right. And another beautiful thing, at least in Israel, I don't know what it's like I don't know what it's been like in Hawaii for the Jewish community, is that you've seen a lot of people turn to spirituality, turn to very classic traditional observances. There's a funny story that was going around of a young girl who was in the army, and her dad said, "Okay, yeah, like go find the nice husband on the base or something." And she's like, "Okay, Abba, but I'm looking for someone who's religious, and everyone's wearing tzitzit, so I don't know who's religious." So, this where everyone's like, we're all in on this together, and it's not gonna last forever.
Definitely, I saw a lot of my past clients who were secular, living in New York, back east, whatever. I feel like a lot of people have actually become more religious during this time. And I mean, definitely it's undeniable that there was a sense of unity amongst Jews everywhere around the world, as much as there's obviously a handful of Jews that are not with us. But at the same time, if you focus on how many people actually got closer to their Judaism, their Jewish identity, their connection to Israel, their homeland, and this feeling of oneness, once we have this very obvious common enemy, I think it's a really beautiful thing and something that was necessary and we needed really badly. So, yeah.
Yeah. The question is, how do we keep it without threat of life? Because, it is a glue. Like it is an unfortunate glue. And, we have to figure out some practical things to make it accessible. Like this idea that it is close to you. It's not across the sea in the mountains. It's right here. Like all this is close to you, and Hashem is literally yelling, calling. He wants you to come, whatever it is, however it is. It could be the simplest thing. It could be calling your parents. That's Kibbutz Avraham. It could be lighting candles on Friday night, even if after you have a hard time actually keeping Shabbat. Like just showing up, tapping into these ancient ideas that are somehow still around. It's kind of crazy, but they're here.
It's amazing.
And it's beautiful, and I've seen it, and I just hope it continues. Mamash, I pray for it all the time. So
me too.
Has since October 7th, do you feel like you've built like a deeper sense of bitachon, like this idea of like trust in a higher power?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
That one comes from Isaac.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I don't think that I try not to let these like external circumstances change my level of faith. Like I was saying in the beginning, it really is unconditional, whether things are going well or things are not going well. I try to maintain a very consistent level of belief in God and connection to God that isn't affected by what's happening outside of me. However, I do think that there was a certain point where I had to turn to that thank you, God, even in the darkest moments, like I had to trust that what's happening to Israel and to Jewish people is happening. God's hand is on what's going on. You can't say, oh, God is in this and God is not in that. God is in my blessings, but he's not in my darkest moments, So there was a certain point where I had to practice my faith actively and remind myself, oh, even in this really dark time, God exists. And what actually helped me was listening to podcasts and reading about people who held that faith in the Holocaust. That was what ultimately reminded me that, we've been through very dark times and there were people who had faith in those dark times. And God proved himself, again and again and again. So I think that looking back on history and really being able to connect with people, Jewish people who went through difficult things and held their faith, reminded me, so can I, even in this dark time, so can I. Of course, there were times where I'm like, it also I questioned my faith in certain moments where I was really mituskelet and really frustrated and angry and upset about what's happening. How can God exist when this is happening? How can God let this happen? How can there be a God that lets these babies and these children and these women go through what they're going through? It's a really hard thing to grasp. But I think that at the end of the day, God is bigger than what we can understand. And it's really humbling. And it reminded me to kind of see myself as how small I am in comparison to what God sees and what God knows. We think we know, And I think that when we're arguing with people on the internet, or, when we're trying to understand things intellectually, we think we understand. I don't think we fully understand. We can't really see things from God's perspective. So again, it comes down to humbly surrendering to God and remembering there's a higher plan here. There's something bigger than what we can understand. So that helped me a lot. And I think challenging my faith, yeah, you could say it strengthened my faith, making me question it and come back to it again and again. It's a practice of strengthening, I would say. But still, I try to keep this unconditional relationship to God that isn't dependent on if things are going well or not going well in life.
Right.
Yeah, definitely tested it though.
We just passed the holiday of Purim, and one of the biggest lessons is that all we know is that we don't know. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a famous line in the Talmud that says it doesn't even say drink, it says you should intoxicate yourself through besuim, through the nostrils. Like it could be sleeping, it could be just, you should be to a point where you don't know the difference between the hero in the story, Mordecai, one of the heroes in the story, Mordecai, and Haman, the evil in the story. So the idea being like the utmost evil and the utmost good are actually two sides of the same coin, and you actually don't know. You don't know, and that's all you know. And it's really, really hard to like be comfortable in that space.
I was just going to say, it's a very controversial thing to say, but I agree. And I think that the more you see the parallels and the arguments on both sides, the more like the lines are very blurred, and you start to realize, like, who am I to decide what is right or wrong, good or bad? Of course, I have a moral compass. Of course, I have my opinion. Of course, I have my own bias and feeling towards a certain group of people. But if I look at the situation truly, it's very hard for me to say this is good and this is bad. It's very hard for me because you can see that there is something much bigger at play here that truly I don't even pretend to understand. Even though I studied politics in Israel, even though I'm very well informed and knowledgeable up here on this conflict, I'm still very humble in the way that I approach it. I don't argue about it. I don't really try to like pick a side. I'm on the side of God. I'm on the side of what I think is, whatever is leading us to love and peace and harmony at the end of this. And however long that takes in our generation or not, I try to remind myself that that's God's goal. It's not for us to sit here and argue about the details of this circumstance. So it's not easy. It's very uncomfortable for people to go there. But since you mentioned it, I just decided to, share a little.
Yeah, no, for sure. I want to bring it back to some of the things you talk about, and this actually comes from Isaac. So I wanted to read it. Sure. He wrote, "You have a very transparent social media presence in the types of content that you make, speaking candidly about topics like finance, weight, relationships. So why does it feel like this is the approach that works well to be so public and transparent? I'm sure you get a lot of people being like, "Oh my God, you're oversharing," or whatever that means. Like, how do you feel about that? And how do you respond to that sort of feedback when you do?
Sure.
When you're very public.
Yeah, so I guess I would say that I've learned the art of digital authenticity, and I think that it's something that's really needed. We live in a physical world. Obviously, we have a spiritual world, but we also live in an online world. A lot of us are spending most of our time, sadly, on this online world. And most of the things that we see on this online world are really carefully crafted images of ourselves, masks that we put on, characters that we create of ourselves that are really creating a lot of problems in our mental health and in our ability to find our spirituality, connect with God, connect with ourselves, connect with each other, just making us further and further apart, making us more isolated, more disconnected from each other and life itself. So to me, it's really important, if I'm going to show up online, to show up honestly. I'm not there to play a role or to be a character. I really want to free people from this idea that they need to have all of their shit together and be perfect and have no problems in life and present this thing that's really damaging to people. It really does cause damage to people's souls to see everyone present a life where everything is going good. It causes serious damage. And I know this because as someone who has coached people for 4 years and has seen people struggle with so many things, seeing these things online makes them feel so bad about themselves, have such low self-esteem, such low confidence. And for me, being able to say, oh, you look up to me, you find me as an inspiration. Let me tell you some of the things that I actually struggle with. Let me tell you some of the truth about my life. I can see how it frees people. It gives them the sense of relief. Oh, I'm okay. I'm fine. Nothing's wrong with me. Part of being human is struggling. Part of being human is messing up and failing and not having the answers to everything. And that's what we need to show people, to remind people that, because everyone's carrying so much shame for not being how other people are presenting themselves. And that shame is the cause of addiction. That is a cause of depression. That shame is literally a disease. Shame is a disease. And I'm trying to cure that disease by reminding people that someone they look up to is also has things that they feel shame around, to release that shame from them. Shame really breeds off of isolation and being inside of you. It's also very healing for me. When I take something that I'm afraid of being judged for, when I take something that people consider shameful and I own it and I share it and I express it and speak it, I am the one that's creating the narrative around my own experience in life. That shame goes from being this really dense energy that I'm carrying inside of me to this thing that just slowly starts to evaporate once people say, oh, me too. Thank you for sharing this. That really helped me. And once you experience that, you realize, oh, this is very important. This is actually a really important thing to do and to continue doing. So that's what I teach people how to do too. Now, I get a coach who's like a finance coach, a money coach, and I tell her, let's talk about the times you were in debt. Let's talk about the times that you felt financially insecure. That's going to bring A, clients to you, and B, that's going to make an impact on people and remind them that they're okay. Okay. So I'm really passionate about this. And of course, there's people who say, oh, she shares too much. Oh, this, that, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's not for them. Okay. It's really not for them. I feel like only people who are willing to be vulnerable have the right to criticize me. And people who are willing to be vulnerable usually have nothing to say. So, because they know how hard it is. So I'm okay with that.
And you also have a coach, right? You have your therapist, or you have somebody that you speak to.
Yeah. I have a whole team. I have a business coach. I have like a holistic health coach. I have a therapist that I'm meeting with in an hour from now. I need that support too. It's not easy. It really does take a lot of courage to show up the way I do, but I see the impact it has and it makes it worth it. Whatever price I have to pay for it, it makes it worth it.
Perfect transition. What are some, I guess, misconceptions that people have about coaching, life coaching, that obviously this is not what you studied in university. This is not what you thought you were going to do when you started your professional career, and you sort of taught yourself, I think, or learned on the go. So maybe we can dispel some myths or some misconceptions about the career.
Sure. Well, I think I would have answered this differently a few years ago. And I want to say that I think, my computer went to its screensaver. I think that life coaching was a stepping stone in my career to see that I'm someone who likes to teach and be of service and guide people. And eventually, like now, helping people show up authentically online and helping them craft their most authentic self on the internet to achieve whatever goal it is, whether it's for their business or for their own self-expression, is definitely what I was meant to do all along. I think that what's important is that when it comes to deeper trauma, when it comes to things that are very serious mental health issues, I don't think a coach is the solution. I don't think hiring a life coach is actually the answer. I think that there are trained professionals that you need to seek to get help from. And I hired many life coaches and realized at the end of the day, no, I actually need a very good therapist for this. And I needed to go through that process. Sometimes you connect with a certain coach that's going to introduce you to the world of getting help. And that's important too. I was a stepping stone for a lot of people who would never go to therapy if they didn't work with me first. So I'm not just, taking away the credit from people who are coaching. However, I do think that when someone has done something that you are trying to achieve and they can make it happen faster and they can teach you what they've learned, it's invaluable. So if I want to build my business in a certain way and I see someone who's already done that, why not pay him to teach me? It is such a blessing. It's such a great tool and resource that we can now exchange these services and our gifts with each other. I think it's an amazing thing. The world is going to become more and more like this. We're all going to take these skills that we've acquired and start teaching each other. Oh, you're good at this. Teach me that. I'll pay you. Oh, you're good at that. Teach me. You know how many people I've coached that ended up coaching me in different areas? So I think it's actually a beautiful thing. that we're evolving into this world where we'll have more freedom as human beings. We'll be able to do what we love. We'll be able to fulfill our purpose. But again, I think you have to understand there's certain things that are for coaching. There's certain things that are for therapy. And at the end of the day, it's important to trust your intuition when you hire someone. Not all coaches are ethical. Not all coaches are honest. Not all coaches are qualified. You have to look at someone and say, okay, is this person actually an embodiment of what I'm trying to achieve? Do I trust them on an intuitive level? Yes, great. I'm sure you'll have a great time, but be aware.
Don't be naive.
Okay.
Yeah,
don't be naive.
Yeah.
Okay, don't be naive, because now that it makes good money, the second things make good money, it's very easy for them to become corrupt. And actually, I'm going to make a lot of content about this soon. It's funny you asked me about how to tell green flags, red flags on like online courses and coaches, because there's so much of it on there. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think when it comes to deeper mental health issues, I highly recommend seeking therapy. When it comes to skills and processes and, learning how to manage your finances or your business or social media or whatever, definitely, why not hire a coach who can make you improve much faster? Makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's do another Isaac question, and then we'll finish up with some rapid fire, hopefully easy questions. Okay. I guess it's sort of a continuation of the previous one about being open on social media. When done incorrectly, the act of drawing attention to oneself on social media can register as egocentric at best and narcissistic at worst. However, the personal commentary that you present on your page takes remarkable strength. And Isaac, I say this because these posts reaffirm your total commitment to your passions. Where do you find the courage to be so consistently vulnerable?
Where do I find the courage to be so consistently vulnerable? I think it goes back to what I was saying, the impact it has on me first. I really do think we're self-centered as human beings. At the end of the day, we don't do things if we don't gain something from them, even if that means feeling better from helping others. So I'm going to be fully brutally honest and say it does serve me first. As an artist, let's call it, I think content is art at the end of the day. If writing is art and taking pictures is art, then content is art. And as an artist, there's something healing in expressing yourself and sharing your stories and sharing your pain with the world. When someone writes a song, it is part of their own healing process that ends up healing their audience and their listeners. They're not making the song for the person listening to it. They're first making the song to express their pain and remove the content from their heart into the world. So first of all, I have to say that it heals me. And when I start to not share things, I start to feel very stagnant energy, this blocked creative energy inside of me that's really forcing me to start putting it out there again. And when I do, I feel a relief. I'm like, I can breathe again. It's not even about if people will like it or not like it. It feels really good to take these stories and take these experiences and put them out into the world. Obviously, once it also helps people and encourages people and inspires people, that's another added benefit that comes with it, that you're like, okay, I have to continue doing this no matter what. But I'll be honest with you, when I don't share, I suffer. When I don't share, I suffer. When I don't make podcast episodes for a certain amount of time, I can feel it. I start to become depressed. And I think that most artists and creatives understand what feeling I'm talking about. The thing is people think social media is like superficial. No, social media is a platform to express yourself. It is an artistic platform to share your ideas, your inner world, your personality. Some people use it superficially, but other people really use it to share the content of their soul. And when you do, it is a healing experience. I do it for my own healing first and to heal others, hopefully, in the process of doing that.
Well, yeah, I really resonate with that.
Yeah.
A lot on my personal page, I changed the title. I used to have a very personal page called Mayo Grandma. Anybody who follows me from that age remembers. And then actually was working with you. You're like, you should be connected to the Jewish history stuff. And then that's when I made the Jewish history guy. And in the beginning, I was being very intentional. I was trying to make posts that were very connected to the posts that were going out on this day. And then it felt forced. I'm like, I don't even know what's happening here. I'm like forcing this. So I took a step back. I remember it was right before I made Aliyah. I didn't post it was the month of Elul, which is the last month of the year. It's a very introspective month. A lot of ideas of returning to yourself, of repentance, in the Jewish way, not in the I'm a terrible person and I've done bad things and I'm gonna be better kind of way. But just it was a very intense month, and in that month I realized oh, okay, like I don't have to force anything. Whatever I'm feeling will come out. And then eventually over time I started making less Jewish history, more Torah. Like I still create Jewish history content on my personal page, but it just evolved in that way where now on Friday afternoons for at least 2 years now, I try to make a post about something that inspired me that week, something about the parsha, the weekly Torah portion, something, or sometimes it could just be something very simple. Like last week, I just said Shabbat Shalom, pray for Israel. I don't know what's going to happen this Shabbat. Everyone's freaking out. There's a lot of weird things going on in the news, and then that's what came out, and it really empowers me. And then a few weeks ago, there was a wedding nearby of somebody in the community. Literally every person that I've met since I moved to Jerusalem was there. It was kind of weird. And I had two different people come up to me, one of whom is this rabbi who's like really cool guy, and he doesn't really speak to you. And he came up to me very specifically, and he's like, I love your posts. And because I started clicking, I started doing the option to share on Facebook automatically, which I hadn't done forever. I'm like, yeah, whatever, who cares? Let's just start doing it. And I have a whole group of people that don't have Instagram, that have Facebook, and that are seeing it there. And that's going out usually Friday morning, because it's Friday when Shabbat's entering here. It's only Friday morning, and we're a lot of, on the East Coast. And just to hear that from him was like huge, because like,
yeah.
I we've had very little conversations, and it's always been very positive, but
that's exactly what I'm saying. It's this two-tier benefit. First, you do it from a place where this is actually really empowering and feels good and enjoyable. And as human beings, we are creative beings. We are meant to create. It is part of our purpose as beings to create and to serve others. And those are primary parts of our purpose, is to create things and to serve the world. And social media gives us a platform, an incredibly powerful platform to fulfill that purpose in a way that we never had the chance to do. So I think that people think, oh, I'm not a content person, I'm not a social media person. Actually, no, like there's so many things that you can share and talk about online, or just skills you have, or you enjoy cooking, teach people how to make your favorite dish. Like it's fun. It's not work. I don't do it for work. I actually enjoy it. I find so much pleasure in it. Like a child, when we were little and used to play on the computer and just like play with word art, that's how I feel when I make my content. And when I enjoy making it, people enjoy reading it. So it's really this enjoyable thing. I don't do it as like, oh, I have to sit and think of something vulnerable to post this week. No, I'm like, wow, let's just like release all shame, have some fun, create cool things, and make people feel good. Like, it's really fun when you can get into that mindset, which is what I teach people how to do, is enjoy the process and create from that place, and not focus on growing my account, getting likes and being liked and not being judged. It is a transformative experience to also be willing to be disliked and misunderstood and judged. Letting yourself be out there and seen is one of the most transformative experiences. It changes your life online too, offline as well, not just online. So that's my whole philosophy, basically.
Right. Okay. Ready for the rapid fire?
I think.
What's been the biggest lesson that you've learned?
Have faith and be patient. Be patient. I think that be patient and don't judge situations or circumstances or life based on what's happening in this moment. If you wait and you hold space, usually you get the answers to why things happened, what you needed to learn. Really the wisdom comes in hindsight. It doesn't come while you're in the experience. So have faith and be patient is kind of like a mantra I have, me and my boyfriend have. He always just says when I'm in a hard time, have faith, be patient. It's really like the remedy to most problems. Have faith and be patient. Don't expect to see what you want or what you need to understand in the moment that you're in it, because usually you look back and you understand it. So patience, having patience with your process, but always having faith that everything is happening as it's meant to. Biggest lesson I've learned recently.
What's the favorite piece of content that you've done that you're just like, wow, I'm so happy about that?
Wow. First of all, I would say my podcast in general, it's such a outlet for me to express myself in a way that's so freeing and so pure without any thought involved. It's kind of like I sit there in like a trance state and speak to myself and put it out there without editing it or thinking about what I'm going to say or plan what I'm going to say. So definitely my podcast is like my heart and soul in content form. But I would say also recently, just these like vlog style videos, speaking content. I'm really enjoying making them. I think I took myself to a new level of letting myself be seen and express myself that I'm just getting into, but I'm really, really loving it. So those videos too.
And the podcast is called
The Life by Taylor podcast. It's pink and purple.
Yes, highly recommend. What is something that you are working on, something that you want to improve from either the business or the content?
One second.
It's okay.
Sorry. I like breathe something in there. Something I want to improve. I think as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, I have to improve discipline and structure in my life. I think it's really, really hard to be your own boss and not really have to do anything, but really have to do a few things for your business to survive. So definitely on that sense, having more structure, more routine is something that I'm constantly trying to learn how to do. On a personal level, I would say, something I want to improve. I mean, I talk about this a lot recently. I'm really working on my relationship to food. I think that we all have our own little things that we use to numb our feelings, to distract ourselves to disconnect from the world, whether it's shopping or being online. Some people use drugs and alcohol. I think that it's really taboo that people only consider drugs and alcohol addiction, but we all have our own little addictions and things that we find temporary relief from that are damaging us spiritually. So to me, my biggest obstacle right now as I'm turning 30 is to really heal my relationship to food, to use it as something that is nourishing to me and helping me, and not something that I'm using in a way that is just to get quick dopamine, escape reality, comfort food. And that's a process that I'm also sharing with my audience.
Awesome. If I could add something to that food part, I learned something last year on around the time of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish, one of the Jewish New Years, but the more famous one is that this idea that on that day we a lot of the prayers are all about crowning Hashem as the king, crowning God as the king. It's all about this idea that we're nothing. We're just that we are basically surrendering. There's a lot of the prayers are about that, or the concepts. And then at the same time, a lot of the prayers, when you look at the details, it's all about like, oh, I'm praying for livelihood, I'm praying for health, I'm praying for success. It's a lot of like very physical things. So it's like, it seems like a paradox. And so the Lubavitcher says that it's actually specifically in the process of praying for yourself that you and recognizing that it's all coming from God, that you're doing both. You're nullifying yourself and also elevating yourself and God. And one of the examples is with food. In Judaism, we have a tradition of saying a blessing before you eat or drink something. And in that moment, you're basically recognizing this isn't mine. I didn't make this. This is a gift. And I'm basically recognizing that this comes from a higher place, and I'm blessing it, and I'm sanctifying it. That's what a bracha is. And so the Baal Shem Tov says that you're actually eating to make a blessing, because when you make a blessing, or when you have that moment of recognition, you're feeding the soul. And so yes, you're eating and you're physically being nourished, but it's through that moment of recognition, that moment of blessing, that your soul is being nourished, and that's really what's keeping you alive.
Absolutely. I actually felt this intuitively. Of course, I learned about these, about the blessings in Hebrew school, and I don't say the Hebrew blessings, but I recently had a moment where I realized, what would happen if I actually took a moment before I ate, every time I ate, and just thanked God, the people who made this food, the food just having this opportunity to eat, and I realized how differently I approach the meal, how differently I eat, how much slower I eat, how much more mindful I am of what I'm putting into my mouth, because so many times we're eating so unconsciously. That one moment, that 1 second, 5 seconds that you take to just bless what you're eating, and just take a moment and say, oh, this coffee didn't just fall out of the sky. Okay. I'm blessed that I have the money for it. I have the resources for it. Someone made it. That moment of mindfulness changes the experience. And there's even times where I feel the resistance to blessing it, because there's a part of me, the animal part of me, the ego part of me that's like, oh, just eat, do this without any soul in it. But when I stop and I do that, I feel such a big difference. That is part of my healing, is to bless food before I eat it, to be mindful before I consume. So it's a good tip. Whether you know the Jewish blessings or not, you can still, like I said, God is still accessible to you. Speak in the way you speak. God knows you. Okay. God knows you better than you know yourself. You can talk how you talk. You don't have to perform. Speak as yourself. He'll get it.
Exactly. And fun fact, the only blessing that's actually required according to the Torah is not even, it's the post blessing. It's the one that where you've already eaten, you've already been satisfied. It's the Birkat HaMazon, the after meal blessing. That's the only one that says that we should do. Because and I read this from Rabbi Sachs. Why? Because that's the harder one. Because that's the one that like, what am I thinking? I'm done. This is over. It's already in me, and I don't even. It doesn't even exist anymore. So
every Friday I feel that when we're after Shabbat dinner, I'm like, well, we're already done. Like, what? Like, can we go?
I'm on the couch.
I feel that.
Okay, last question, and we've asked this before, and I don't know. I mean, it would be fun to look back and see what you answered then.
Yeah, interesting.
If you had a billboard,
here we go,
that billions of people could see. What would you imagine? One of your pieces of content gets billions of whatever. What would you put on it, and why?
I would say I would probably write "See yourself in everyone." I think that if we treat others just to the extent how we see ourselves, we judge people on the things we're judging ourselves for. We're triggered by people who do things that would trigger us to do in ourselves. And I feel like if I saw everyone as myself, I would probably treat myself better because I'm better at treating other people better. But I would also start to treat, it would go both ways. So I would say just treat everyone like you're speaking to yourself. We want more compassion when we make a mistake, but we're so harsh when other people make a mistake. We want people to see past us, certain things in us, and see the beauty in us, but we're there picking at all of these people's flaws. We want to be unconditionally loved by a partner, but we come to dates with so many conditions. So I would say treat everyone like yourself. See yourself in every single person you interact with. It will benefit them and it will benefit you. We really are all one, and I think that is like something I try to keep in mind. I try to treat people like I want to be treated, and I try to treat myself the way I would treat my best friend or someone I love so much. So that would be my message.
So that's everything. Like loving yourself, loving your fellow like yourself, Courtney. So. Thank you, Taylor Amrani. You can find Taylor at Life by Taylor podcast, Taylor Amrani on TikTok. And thank you so much.
Till next time. So we're going to have at the end, we're going to have a montage of me from 25 years old until 50 years old doing interviews.
I'm looking back at the earlier episodes of us. We look at kids. It's been almost 4 years. In May, it'll be 4 years. Wow.
Unreal. We're just going to keep doing this. And then in the end, it'll be a beautiful
this is our
thing to look
year.
back on.
It's
our senior year, exactly. Yeah. We're going to college now. Amazing. Thank you so much, Mayor. It's always such a pleasure. And hi, Isaac. Lots of love. Thank you for the questions.